Welcome back to Cards and Comics. Today I'm going to be sharing with you part one of a two-part video series I'm doing about the hobby predictions I have for 2022 and my collecting goals. And I'm going to have 6 of each. So part one is going to be my hobby predictions for 2022. So prediction number 1, and this will be no surprise to anyone that's kind of following the hobby right now, but in sports cards and other types of cards, price corrections will continue for some cards that have kind of gone way up in value in the last 6 months to a year. And you know, I'm saying that there's going to be lower demand, and I say this because I think the collecting base for these cards isn't as high, isn't going to be as high in the future as it is today, because I think some of these cards were collected because of a herd mentality or from speculation that they'll go up or continue to go up, and I don't think they're going to have as high of a collecting base in the future as they do today. I think you're going to see an erosion of some of that collector base, and that'll make demand go lower. And the second part of it is just that these cards have higher production than originally was thought, and it won't be able to sustain this lower demand, and so prices will go down. So we'll start off the list of here as Young Guns and hockey. And I don't think a lot of people realize that, you know, I think, you know, that if you buy one case of Upper Deck hockey, you get a full set of Young Guns based on the amount of boxes that are in the case and how often they fall. And you know, I watch some of the hockey channels like Zuri, and you know, they open a full case, they get basically a full set of Young Guns. And I'm on e-Pack buying these cards, and they're just not that rare, especially with e-Pack out there. There's tons of base cards of Young Guns out there. And Upper Deck has got, you know, multiple variations now. Now you got canvas, you've got high gloss, you've got exclusives, you got photo variants, you've got the acetate versions. I mean, it's just, there's so many versions of these, and it just kind of makes the base Young Gun continue to be, you know, not as cool anymore because there's other versions that are cooler, but it just divides the money up further and further and further. One is second year cards of GOATs. You know, I think we're going to continue to see them be worth something, but not the tremendous value that we saw in 2019 and 2020. They'll go down. Kabooms is another good example of, you know, and Marvel PMGs. What's going to happen with those two sets, in my opinion, is they're going to continue to print those cards in multiple sets. I think they're going to be an entire Kaboom set where, you know, you get, it's like, you know, you get a Kaboom per, you know, box, and they'll just keep doing it because, again, Panini and Topps has lost their, you know, the licenses, and they got to find some way to generate interest, and they're not going to just take into account people's wishes that these cards remain rare. They'll just keep printing them, and Josh Lubrick even talks about that in some of his videos, how these rare cards really aren't that rare. And I think he's talking about things like Kabooms, which keep getting printed over and over in multiple sets. PMGs, again, we saw them come out in Marvel X-Men this year. They came out in hockey, and I think you'll see them coming out in the next Spider-Man set. And you know, and then they'll just keep printing them and printing them in multiple colors, and they'll just keep, you know, doing this over and over to where these PMGs won't be as cool and rare, and the value will go down. And then lastly is cards like this LeBron James cool dunk photo, which I call more like gimmicky cards. You know, they went up because there was some gimmick associated with the card. I think people will get smarter and smarter, and these gimmicky cards won't take off as much and won't be worth quite as much, and people will realize it's not really truly scarce, and there's not, and it's just a little bit of a gimmick of a card. And lastly, you know, what's going to be true for across the board, but these kind of cards will be affected more than most, will be that Panini and Topps, and to some extent Upper Deck, you know, based on how the market is right now, they're going to continue to print and print and print cards until the market either cools off and everything sells out in 2 seconds on online, which we see some of the Panini stuff kind of slowing down a little bit. But they're going to continue to print until the demand is satisfied and they're stuck with some product. But until then, it's going to keep going up and up and up. And they're going to focus on the stuff people really like because, again, Topps and Panini are losing licenses. And so they're going to print as much as possible. And if it's stuff that is going to guarantee sales, you're going to see more and more of that. So I think that's going to affect these kind of cards specifically. Second prediction is, there's going to be consolidation. So, I've got this giant list of card companies or people involved in the sports card, in some cases both sports card and comic book hobby. And what we're seeing here is just that as the value of cards have gone up so much, all these companies are coming in and trying to take a piece of the pie. I feel like you're going to see consolidation in a lot of ways, right? Now, the first way I think you're going to see is, I think Fanatics itself is stated, Josh Luber has stated he's not going to create cards under a Fanatics name. We're not going to see Fanatics branded cards. So he's already looking for other brands and names to associate with the Fanatics brand. And he mentioned specifically Exquisite and Upper Deck. He would love to issue Exquisite Upper Deck basketball cards, right? And so that is something that they're already thinking of, right? That they want to basically go back to these classic brands, Topps, Chrome, and football, right? And issue cards and have those, built-in fan bases. And so I think we're going to see that more likely than Fanatics coming out with, different brands that are, new to the hobby. Or though, and I think number two is, they're going to try to license those brands first. If they can't do that, they may try to buy the brands. And this has happened before. Remember, O-Pee-Chee used to be owned by Topps. Now it's owned by Upper Deck, right? So, brands have been sold to other brands. You got Leaf out there with some of these legacy brands, right? So, it's not unheard of for these brands to be purchased by other companies, right? So that could happen. So I think that will be something we'll see is, either they try to buy the brand, buy the company, license the brand, and the last thing they'll do is create something new. Secondly is smaller grading companies that are out there like HGA, which I have on the list here, or the logo here. I think it's much more likely that those companies will just go out of business rather than be absorbed into another company, because Fanatics has already said they're not going to get into grading, and if they're going to do anything, they're going to try to hook up with an existing grader like PSA, SGC, BGS, and turn them into a kind of an in-house grading company. And so I just feel like they're more likely to go out than be absorbed, and they don't have any IP that's really unique that would make them a target for acquisition. In terms of distribution, right? So Fanatics, I think, is going to internalize distribution. So where does that leave Blowout, David Adams, and other Steel City and these other brands or other companies that do distribution outside of the companies directly, right? So Fanatics is direct to consumer. That's their model. They talk about in the sneaker side of it with Josh Luber, and doing drops where they're basically taking limited products and dropping them direct to consumer using things like Dutch auctions. You mentioned that in a interview with Cardboard Sports Card Nonsense. So again, I think they're going to be doing these really unique, cool card collaborations and dropping them direct to consumer. Now, I think they're going to have retail products, but they're going to be really mass printed, and they're not going to be the really cool stuff that people really want or limited. Luber mentioned specifically how Panini ruined Select, and I don't think that they'll do that in the future. Is ruin a product like Select, do it as a drop versus doing it like Panini did. So I think that's going to be something. Is how are all these companies that do distribution today going to fit into Fanatics model? And again, analytics, right? So someone's going to emerge. For my money, VCP is clearly the leader in terms of just the content. Market Movers, Card Letter, which just got purchased by PSA, so that's consolidation's already started to happen. But again, nobody's doing it perfectly. Nobody's incorporating non-sports cards and raw cards and packs and box prices and kind of the whole hobby as a big mass into one database and analytics that is easy to navigate and can do everything very well. It's very much kind of a dog's breath of who's got what information, how accurate information, how up to date information. Again, nobody's doing it perfectly, and I think eventually someone's going to figure out and maybe get enough money to do it right, and they'll be the clear winner. Then everybody's going to use them, and then everyone else will just kind of go away. And I just feel like that's what's eventually going to happen with the analytics side. Prediction 3: collaboration. So collaborations are going to be the future of the hobby in terms of Fanatics. Model is that's how they're going to generate hype and buzz to the hobby, and we're already seeing it. Steve Aoki, Kevin Durant, he's already collecting his own cards, and then you've got Rob Kardashian doing box breaks. So celebrities are already starting, and I think this is going to be just the tip of the iceberg. We talked about Topps Project, which got a lot of hit or miss types of content, but it's just the beginning of real artists, collaborating in a very real way that's unique to the market, and we're going to see more and more of that. Artist-driven sets, things that people only can get from the artist or from this one artist, and that's going to make people really want the product. And again, I'm not just talking about art, but I'm talking about design. Wouldn't it be cool if somebody could find a way to create a design of a card that's unique and awesome that no one's thought of, and it's only available from this one artist, right? That's working with Topps or Panini or Fanatics in the future. So I think there's a lot of ways to think about it, but I think we're just starting the whole process of real artists working with these companies creating unique IP. And then I think musicians will be given bigger platforms, and I'm not talking about really creative, like how they're going to create new cards. I'm talking about an event where you got musicians either helping create products or helping promote products by being at events, like a DJ, a band playing at an event where people would want to go there to experience the music, and at the same time there could be cards or other content, and it just creates a bigger event. And I think that's something we're going to see more and more of. It's just these collaborations, either through designing or even cards with musicians on them, and then the musicians actually performing and doing these events, and people want to be at the event. Athletes developing their own card brands and their own cards, I think that's going to happen. I think somebody like Steph Curry, if he created a subset of cards that commemorated his 3-point scoring or title or record he just did, and he was able to handpick the cards that were the photos and then signed those cards live in a live stream. That would be something that people would really want to be involved with, right? And I just think, and let's say there's a certain type of card that you can only get through his box that you have to buy that he helped create. I just think that's going to be the collaborations we think in the future. Again, just like shoes, it's going to be unique to that artist, that athlete, whoever is going to be the collaborator, and you can only get it through either a website that they get part of the profits on, and they have a vested interest in it. And this is all going to happen, and I feel like it's going to be something that we just see more and more of. And then lastly is this idea that events like a box break hosted by an athlete or a celebrity, and then take it one step further. Take that Steph Curry example, and Steph Curry opens a box of cards that you're involved with, and then he hits the autograph, but the autograph isn't autographed, but he autographs it live during the box break, and you can tell him what inscription you want him to put on the card, right? Like that would be worth a lot of money for someone to have that opportunity, right? And I think that's what you're going to see in the future is, a lot of collaborations with these artists and these athletes, to where you're going to be able to open the product with that athlete and even maybe get to be interactive in some way, like having them sign something for you directly on that card. Again, and it's going to be at a huge premium, right? And Josh Luber already mentioned that events like this, like card breaking, is going to be an event, and he's going to work with card breakers that they think offer some entertainment value, not just the ability to pronounce the names correctly, right? Prediction 4. So again, I think most people will see this coming down the road, but eBay is going to just continue to be less and less relevant to the hobby. These new platforms that are popping up left and right, Alt, Whatnot, the Card Vault, and even the existing ones, StarStock, Check Out My Cards, My Slabs, all of them are going to create marketplaces and that are more competitive than eBay because they're attacking eBay's fee structure, which is not sustainable because it's not competitive with what these other companies offer. And even Fanatics, Fanatics is going to go direct to market. So there you go. They're going to create another marketplace that's going to be better than eBay right now, because in all honesty, if you went and bought sports clothing today, you're probably going to buy it from Fanatics directly because it's much better than buying it through any other format, because they definitely have created a unique way of buying through them. Why wouldn't they do the same thing for cards? And that's going to be their model. But the other reason why eBay is going to go down, in my opinion, is they don't offer services that the collectors in the future want, and specifically the high-end collector that's got these $10,000, $100,000 cards, that are going to be in these vaults, because the vaults make sense for this kind of cards, because if you think about it, having those big cards somewhere safe and secure that you can sell on the platforms that are allowed through that vault system, or traded maybe vault to vault. I don't know what kind of deals can be worked out, or even within that own vault, but then you don't have to pay for shipping. You don't have to worry about your card, your $100,000 card showing up. Or you can go to the vault and pick up your cards. I mean, it's offering a lot of good value for these really high-end cards that, in all honesty, nobody really wants to have $200,000 cards just laying around your house. And so they will become normal for how you buy, sell, hold, and flip these high-end cards. And then these new platforms, will offer multiple services, not just selling. I think vault services and these platforms, these marketplaces, will offer you the ability to trade. What if you go to a card show and say, hey, I've got this PSA 9 Jordan card in my vault. I'll trade it to you. Do you have a vault? Oh, yeah, I do. Boom. I transfer it to your vault. You transfer me your card. A third party handles that transaction, and you're both leave that card show with cards that you didn't have at that show. It's all done virtually. That's something that eBay will never offer, right? eBay's not going to offer you ability to create, let's say, a collector's page where you can show off your collection. eBay's never going to offer you some ability to sell your card through either auction or fixed price, or allow you to have the flexibility, to do multiple ways of selling your card. It's just, they don't offer a lot of unique ways to do things, and these other marketplaces are going to continue to be aggressive and go after eBay, and they've already beat their pricing structure, and it's just about getting the eyeballs now. So, but again, eBay is going to eventually turn into like the Dollar General of sports card marketplace in the future, in my opinion. Anything that's worth, anything that's hot or worth a lot of money is going to go somewhere else. Number 5, things that may become things in 2022. So here we go. These are things that I think that I personally would like to become things in the future, or things that I would hope become things, but you never know. But first off, I think we're going to see other forms of media turned into comics and cards more often. I think in the past it was kind of half-hearted, and oh, here's an anime card, or here is a card set based on a movie, but we're not going to really do much for it. I think we're going to see more and more attention paid to these other forms of media, and when they're turned into comic books or cards, even games like MetaZoo got turned into a comic book, those things will be considered much more relevant and collectible, and I think you'll see people going after them. So I just feel like that's going to be something that you see more and more will happen more and more often, is very serious attempts to turn these other forms of media into cards and comics. We're already seeing it with Tom Brady. So pre-2015 refractors and Panini Prism cards for GOATs, right? Now, I'm sure some people have noticed, but if you haven't noticed it, Aaron Rodgers, refractors from 2015 and before have just gone nuts, and they're going up every day. And because he's going to win the MVP this year most likely in football, you're just seeing his cards just going up tremendously. And there's other players like Barry Sanders and Emmitt Smith and Brett Favre and Dan Marino and Peyton Manning that can do the same exact thing. And I think eventually we're going to see, because we're already seeing Tom Brady refractors, non-rookie refractors, bringing 5 figures. I think some have brought 6 figures already. They're now becoming ultra high-end. And now we're seeing it with Aaron Rodgers, and I think we're going to continue this trend to where these numbered pre-2015 refractors and prism cards are going to be considered ultra high-end and are going to be vaultable type cards in the future, and there's going to be a huge run on those cards. And once they get put into people's collections, there's not enough of them really to go around in some cases, and that they will continue to be very high-end and very highly sought after. And then that leads into other 90s inserts. So as refractors become, let's say, more expensive and pricey, the other inserts for the 90s are going to become more popular. So you've got things like, that haven't blown up quite as much yet, like jambalayas from non-basketball, essential credentials, cut aboves, linchpins. I could go on and on about other cool sets from the 90s that could get turned into, the next hot thing, because as people look for the next thing to buy that's really cool and really unique, there's tons of it out there. Precious metals, not PMGs, but the Donna's Preferred Precious Metal cards are another one. Those things are unique, they're limited, and what's going to happen also is Fanatics or these other companies like Upper Deck are going to see that and replicate those cards again and again, because they know they're a known commodity, and you can continue to see those things be copied into current cards, driving up the prices on the older cards. So I do think we'll see more of that from the success of this year's PMGs and the Marvel market and the hockey market. I think you'll continue to see people going back to the 90s and pulling those better designs into the future. Here's one that, I think people know this inherently, that those 90s and early 2000 cards of players that are deceased, Mickey Mantle, Ted Williams, and even though I got, Willie Mays, he's not really signing anymore. And those cards will never be duplicated. And so, on-card autos that don't have a lot of smudging, a lot of Willie Mays cards are smudged terribly. Finding the good ones, finding ones that are on a card that looks halfway decent, because in all honesty, some of the 2000 designs and 90s designs are terrible. There's a lot of great ones, but there's some terrible ones too. That is something that's going to make some of those really nice looking cards. The Upper Deck Legends is a great set, for example. The Ted Williams in that set, the Same Usual. Those cards I think will continue to be highly sought after. You're going to see a run on some of those cards. You're going to see some of those cards disappear off eBay and never come back unless they're at a huge premium. And Bill Russell and some of these guys are just going to disappear. Wilt Chamberlain, you're not going to see those cards ever unless they're in a golden auction or a big time auction, because people realize that they didn't make very many on-card autos of some of these guys. So I think we'll see a big run-up of some of these cards in the future as well. And then lastly, something I think it's going to happen eventually. I don't know who's going to do it, but manga, which is outselling comic books now, in the US. Hardcover books, especially sci-fi and fantasy books, and vinyl records all have tremendous fan bases of collectors. and nobody has gone out there and done third-party grading and encapsulation for those cards, or for those collectibles yet, right? We saw how, you know, a company like Wata, even though you may think them as being, you know, highly negative now, but when they came into the video game category and had a more, let's say, say better offering than what was existing before from graded games, people got very excited, right? And I do think that if someone were to figure out a way to encapsulate things like manga, hardcover books, vinyl records, those collectibles could really spike in price because there's a built-in fan base of people who love those products. Prediction number 6, final prediction for 2022 is, as always, as the prior products that were hyped and flipped and maybe are going down in value, these flippers and speculators will always try to find something new to pump up and dump. And so, you know, right now we're seeing MetaZoo being pumped by Sports Card Collector or Sports Card Investor. You know, in a recent video, you know, Flesh and Blood, Weiss Schwarz. You know, these things are always being pumped and dumped to some extent, you know, by different, you know, people on YouTube. But I think we're going to see at some point, you're going to see this massive jumping into one of these products. You know, I think MetaZoo is probably going to be the first one to go big, but you're going to see it. And I just feel like these things are kind of cyclical, but I think in 2022, you're going to see MetaZoo be the big winner, but these other sets could go up too in these collectible card games. Sports memorabilia, I think we're already seeing graded tickets being pumped by Sports Card Investor. I think magazines could be something pumped as well. I mean, Sports Illustrated, Michael Jordan cover magazines, all those things could be something that people try to pump and dump in 2022. Non-sports cards, you know, we already saw Marvel comic cards from the 90s go way up, but there's a bunch of pre-90s comic cards. I mean, there's comic cards all the way in the 60s, and I think the first Superman set's like in the 40s. So again, you know, will those sets go way up? I don't know, but they exist, and I think someone's going to try to pump and dump them. And then movie and anime cards are kind of not have a huge history of sets, but even the sets that are out there aren't that great. And I think someone could do an awesome Dragon Ball Z set, could do an awesome, you know, Macross Akira set, or, you know, a Dune movie set that's awesome and have people really want to collect those cards and autographs. Will it happen? I don't know, but I think if it does, that could be a pump and dump. Non-traditional sports cards. So again, if you look at, you know, the popularity of sports across the world, you know, we saw F1 and soccer take way off, but you know, cricket and rugby are two sports that are very popular across the world that doesn't really have a lot of base of fans in the U.S. But we saw with, you know, F1 how well that took off, and without a huge U.S. fan base. So again, you know, will cricket cards ever be huge in the U.S.? I don't know. But across the world, maybe. But I think it could definitely be a speculation pump and dump. And then, you know, the truth is that anytime that there's more speculation in the marketplace, other, you know, types of collectibles go up in terms of value, it pulls money away from other things. So things get spread out, you know, across the board more evenly, and that's going to take away from the traditional sports cards, and that's again going to lead into price corrections on, you know, football cards, basketball cards, baseball cards, and, you know, even the stuff that was hot last year like F1 and soccer might go down because that money's going into cricket or MetaZoo cards or whatever, and that's just how the market works. So that's my predictions for, you know, 2022. I'm a little late. I've recorded this video multiple times and had the audio kind of destroyed, but hopefully you like it. I spent some time trying to put together. Leave comments on what you think. Do you have some of your own predictions? If you made a video, point it to me and I'll definitely look at it. But, you know, I just want to share with you my thoughts, and hope you guys have a great day, and I'll see you next time. And stay tuned to part 2 of the video, which is my goals for 2022. Thanks. Bye.